So preventive and predictive maintenance. These are the different pieces of that puzzle. Component inspections. You actually go out and touch and look at and feel, take readings. In some cases, you take it apart and inspect. You have lubrication programs. You want to do infrared thermography on the predictive side of the business. Who in here has an active thermography program? Well, pretty small number. I would think it'd be beneficial for y'all to have not just a temperature gun, but have a camera. Very inexpensive. I saw one the other day for under $300 that plugs into your smartphone. Huh? Yeah, not as good probably as a $1,500, $2,000, $5,000 one, but it gets you in the ballpark of things are going on. Something's unusual here with temperature. Vibration analysis, you're probably not doing much of that. You could do that if you have really big fans, big chillers, maybe even your big generators, your 3 meg generators. Vibration analysis would be good. I recommend having an outside party do that for you. Ultrasonic testing is great for any kind of air or vacuum leaks if you have any of those kind of systems. So under preventive, you have inspections. You have runtime inspections, operator interview, and downtime inspections. Runtime inspections is when you inspect when it's running. So you're driving down the road and you start hearing this click, 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 trying to figure out what it is. Or every time you hit the brakes, it squeals. Okay, it makes that awful whistling sound. That's a runtime inspection. You're picking up noise while it's running and operating. Operator interview, if you have an operator, like a boiler operator, chiller plant, main plant, things like that, you want to talk to them and find out what they're hearing, what they're seeing, what they're feeling. And then, of course, you have downtime inspections, where you want to take something apart, you want to look inside, things of that nature. Inspections must be detailed. What to check, how to check, and what the acceptable result is. So back to the pressure thing I mentioned. Let's say it's a delta P across a filter bank. You check it, you look, and it says, whatever inches of mercury reading you have on it. It tells you how to check it if it's not a fixed gauge. But do your systems or do your instructions tell you what's an acceptable result? If they don't, then you don't know whether it's good or bad. Now, history, experience, you've been doing this for 10 years, that'll tell you a little bit. But it's hard to relay that up to the appropriate people without saying, this is where it was a year ago, this is where it was today, this means we now have to do something. There's a whole process in books written out there called visual engineering, where you take a pressure gauge, and a good gauge, you can take the glass off of it, or you can even just paint it on the glass. You paint a wedge that's green. That's where the pressure should be. The rest is red. The needle should not be in the red. You have everybody here has that on your car, on your temperature gauge, right? And other gauges, potentially, depending on what kind of vehicle you have. So make sure they're detailed. One of my biggest pet peeves is I look at people's PM programs and they say, yeah, we got a PM program, we're doing great. And you look at it and it says, check chiller. We probably have some of those out there, right? It's like having a work order that says broke, right? What does your technician write on it when he finishes with it? Fixed. What do you, huh? Yeah, broke, yes, It's like, you guys are data. You guys are critical facilities. You got to get yourself, your FM, into the data. The data is critical. If you have a really good history, if you have a great history of work orders and PMs on all of your equipment, I can predict your future. If I know what happened for the last 2 years, I can tell you what's going to happen next year, just by looking at the data. So remember, check pump is not good. What do you check on a pump, and how do you check a pump, and what equipment do you use to check the pump? Okay, 3 methods to perform PM work. Inspect only. That's inspect and write work orders, work requests. Serious problems are called in as an emergency, or a reactive work, or a breakdown, or whatever you want to call them. Everybody has a different name for them. That's one way. The problem with that method is you end up with a lot of stuff in your backlog that says this needs fixing, adjusting, painting, whatever the case is, and then you have a hard time getting to it. The second method is you inspect and perform minor maintenance tasks while you're doing the PM. And minor could be tightening belts, could be cleaning filters, could be adding oil to something. The key to this type work is you want to make sure that this work doesn't interfere with you completing the PM for the day or for the hour or for whatever your time frame is. So you don't want to get bogged into too much work. And the last method is to inspect and make all repairs. And that's typically like in a shutdown period where you're taking one of your redundant systems and you could take it down and spend 8 hours working on it. So that's an acceptable method. You have to decide which one of those 3 methods works best for each asset. Sometimes a drive-by is good. And you'll see on the screen before I finish, in my opinion, there's no such thing as a bad PM. Okay? There's only better PMs. So if you're getting started, if you're trying to get your program going, at least do a drive-by. You know, some people criticize the media, they call it the drive-by media. It's a drive-by PM. You walk by and go, yep, still there, looks pretty good. All right, get a check. It's better than nothing, okay? But what we should have is what to check, how to check, what to do. So keep that in mind. Some stuff you can drive by easily, some stuff you need to take it apart. Remember, you can also do too much PM, okay? Especially if you're taking things apart. So be careful of that as well. When you do one of these methods, you want to make sure that when you leave it, everything that's in your backlog is completed for that asset. Now, does everybody here have a maintenance backlog? Everybody know what a backlog is? It's a list of work that's been deferred and you haven't gotten to it yet, right? Is the backlog good or bad? Hands for good. Come on now. Don't be bashful. There's no wrong answer. Yeah, there is. Hands for bad. Wow. Backlog is good. You should always have a backlog of work to do, or you'd have too many people. Okay, now if your critical facility demands that, then, and you can justify it to management, then fine, that's okay. I don't have a problem with that in critical work. But you've probably got all kinds of stuff that's not critical, that needs to be done, and that's what you put in your backlog. Critical stuff needs to be addressed. Other things in the PM and predictive program is a lubrication program, routine inspections and adjustments and lubrications. You need to know what grease to use, what oil that goes in it, how it's applied, what kind of filters, things like that. When you get to the predictive side of the business, you want to look at infrared, as I mentioned, ultrasonic, lubrication, lube oil analysis, vibration analysis. Anybody here do lube oil analysis on your chillers? Big gearboxes, fans, okay, good. It's a great way to determine whether your lube is still good instead of just replacing it. It's also, if you're on the left coast, they use it for waste stream reduction, where you're not recycling as much oils and things like that. So it can be used for multiple things. Yeah, I'd kind of put that in the lube oil analysis, but yeah, for your generators, you should be doing that with all of your diesel.